Hi Stampin' friends, this is Tar Heel Stamper. I needed a masculine birthday card for my son, and he loves pepperoni pizza, so this was just perfect. It's not an original idea of mine. There was some other cards out there that I looked up, and I used different ones to come up with this particular one here. Mine is a little more realistic looking than the others, but you can make them in just plain colors without all the sponging for a birthday party invitation. And like I said, I'm using this for a birthday card. Inside, I used My Digital Studio and printed off, "Hope your birthday is filled with your favorite things. Happy birthday," and then my son's name. And I put some little pizza slices in here also. I will have a supply list at the end. First thing I did, I used Crumb Cake, which is Stampin' Up's. It used to be called Craft cardstock. Now it's called Crumb Cake. You put your paper in there lengthwise, cut it at 4 1/4 inches, and then turn that piece around and score it at 5 1/2. Just wanted to show you that so you make sure that you knew which way to do it. Now I folded this already, and I've already cut this one because I didn't want to use the time. Whatever circle cutter you have, a Colossal or circle scissors or whatever it is you have, you need to cut off that top part. So you're going to have a piece like this. And that's what you're going to start with. This is the base of your piece. Whatever circle cutter you use, just make sure that you don't cut all the way through. So you want to have a part of that fold. Make sure your circle part, let me see if I can show you a little bit. Make sure your circle cutter is just above it, something like that, so that you will have a piece here that's not cut. And then you want to take your card and make a mark at 2 1/4. That'll be halfway through. Next step, you're going to take your trimmer. You want to line up the very end of the rounded piece on both sides. And do the same thing. I'm just going to show you one side because I've already got a card made. So not waste time on the video. Okay. If you don't get it exact, it's no big deal. I mean, it's going to be covered up with the crust afterwards anyway. But you want to make sure you get it lined up pretty well, pretty close to that. Especially at the bottom, you want to point. And let's see. Sometimes you have to run it back through twice because it kind of wants to stick there. And you're going through 2 layers at once. So now we got kind of like a symbol of a Superman symbol or something like that. Next step, you're going to get the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 Very Vanilla. We're going to do the solid cheese background right now. So I've got this one piece here, and I'm going to take and line up. I don't know if you can see this with that color cardstock underneath, but what you want to do is make sure you're lining this up where the corners are going to meet where they need to, okay? And then just take a ruler or pencil. You want that point. The main thing here is to make this point be where it needs to be and that the corners are covered. So now we're going to lightly draw a line with the pencil on each side. We're going to trace it and then we're going to cut it out. If you don't get all the pencil lines off, I love the art gum erasers for getting that off. It's really good. Okay, so I would rather have a little too much go outside slightly of the pencil area. You can always trim it up at the end. And we want this to fit over that. But like I said, you can always trim it up at the end if you need to. Okay. So now basically that's going to be our cheese background. But I am going to erase those lines quickly. And I love this eraser. It works so well. And they're cheap. They're very inexpensive. So, okay, we get that off. Get that dusty stuff, and I don't know what that is. Okay. Alright, so now we got the cheese background. Next step you're going to do is just kind of free line it up You want to make sure you're getting where it needs to be. Like I said, the main part is that you get the card here lined up. And what I'm doing next is that's why I wanted the card behind it. I want to make sure that my crust is going to cover the lines, and we'll trim these little parts off later. But I went down about maybe a ½ an inch, I think, about right there, and just marked. I'm not going to be exact, but I want 2 little marks, pencil marks, light pencil marks, and I'm going to start cutting a swirly. Just a little swirly. This is where my sauce part's going to show through later. And then just keep coming around. And again, if you need to erase, just get that off real quick. I love that arc eraser. I know I said that, but it does work, believe me. Let's see. Might get that off. Well, there you go. Like I said, it was a pencil mark. So now this is going to be our cheese, and you can check it again just to make sure that it's gonna, some of the sauce, because we're gonna put a Cajun Craze background there, so some of the sauce will show through. Just think that makes it look a little more realistic. And if you need to, you can go back. Like, I don't like that little point there, so I'm gonna go back and trim that a little bit. Alright. Now that we've got this little cheese piece cut out, what I'm going to do next is use a sponge and start sponging around the edges. And I won't leave the video on the whole time, but I wanted to show you a little bit. Oops. A little bit of how I do this. I just cut a sponge up and make sure you get it a little bit blended, but I mean, key here is you're going to build on this anyway, so just to give it some more dimension, more realistic looking. Like I said, you don't have to do all this, but since my son's an adult, I thought it would be better to have. I also took and just did some little areas, like kind of lightly, very lightly pouncing on it to cut out some of that very vanilla look. And then you can start using this little swirly motion, put some areas. We're going to put this, it looks kind of burned. I guess it's really not burned, but it looks that way. So I'm going to do a little few areas like that. And then when I want to get a little bit more direct contact with it, I take a regular office clip, and then you can go back in and make some a little bit darker, or getting it too dark. And you want to have some, because this is a pizza crust, and you can curl it or whatever you think it would look like. Okay, next I'm going to take, now that, I'm sorry, I should have told you that was crumb cake. I'm going to Stampin' Up! Crumb cake. Next one is soft suede, and I'm just going to use just the little smaller piece of a sponge, so I have very little ink going on there. And I'll start just building it up. And I take a Q-tip and just load it up for the real parts, like I want to just have a really dark, some dark areas, you know. Next we're going to do the sauce. I just have a piece of 4 1/4 by 2 3/4 of Cajun Craze. And I just used a pencil, lined it up, used a pencil. You don't need all this, but I just had it for reasons to make sure I had enough to cover down there. It's also easier to handle when you're working with stuff like that. Okay, so we got this. Now I'm going to do a little bit of sponging on it. And I used a little bit of the soft suede. And one good thing to do too, I forgot to tell you this, a tip, is to take your crust, the piece that's going to be your crust, and just kind of mark around like this, so you'll know. Just make a few little marks. You can, like I said, you can erase them with the arc eraser. I don't know if you can, if that picks it up or not, but that's what I do. Then I kind of know where I'm going to go, and just start sponging in just